Hey everyone, and welcome to your Java tutorial on arrays. So let's begin by deleting this hello world instruction. And let's start off with a definition. So what is an array? An array is a collection of elements identified by an index. So you can think of an array as a list of elements that has a number to identify each value in the list. So for example, if I create a grocery list here, we'll call this grocery. And in our grocery list, I have carrots, celery, milk, eggs, and bread. This is sort of just a list, right? Just our normal grocery list. Conceptually, to turn it into an array, all I would need to do is give each value in the list a number to identify it. So as we put in our numbers here, you can see that this is kind of sort of conceptually becoming a list. Now, the first thing you might notice is that in this first element is identified by a 0. So that's very common in pretty much every programming language to have an array, and the first element is a 0. Now there are 5 elements in the array, but since it starts at 0, the final element is identified by a 4. So this is how you would conceptually create an array. Okay, so now let's see the syntax in Java for an array. Let's create some space there. And so to begin our array, we're going to start out with a type. And we're just going to recreate this list here. So we'll use a string and that's to tell the compiler, hey, we're going to put different strings in this array. We're going to use the open and close brackets, straight brackets there, to say, hey, this is going to be an array. We'll call this array groceries. And there you have it. That's how you declare an array. But what you also need to do with an array, outside of just declaring the type and the name, is you have to tell the compiler how many items will be in the array. So to do that, we're going to use the assignment operator. We're going to say new string array, just like we did over here, except in the brackets, we're going to put in 5 for the number of items. Remember, there's 5 items in our array over here. Now, there are a couple ways to add our values into the array. I'm going to show you the most sort of like the scenic route to doing this, because it kind of covers a couple concepts. So to add our first element of carrots at the 0 index, right? So this is the index and this is the value. We are going to access our groceries array at the 0 index. So that's how you do that. So this is an array in memory is just enough memory to store each one of these as variables. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables, 5 strings, and this array is just going to set aside enough space to store each variable. And you're going to be able to access that memory location by using your index. So all we're doing here is we're accessing the 0 index memory location in the groceries array. And what we're going to do for that is we're going to use our assignment operator, and we're going to give it a value. So let's say carrots here. Awesome. So what we've done here is we've accessed the 0 index, the 0 element of the array, and we've given it the value of carrots. So now we're going to do the same thing for celery, milk, eggs, and bread. So I'm going to access the first element, and we're going to say celery. We're going to access the sorry, not the first element, the second element. I'm going to access the third element, and we're going to have milk. We're going to access the fourth element here, and we'll say eggs. And then we'll access the fifth element, or the fourth index. Oh, this is eggs. And oops. And we will call this one, we'll get the value of bread. Awesome. So there you have it. We have our array, and we've accessed each element of our array using the index, and we've used our assignment operator to give that index a value. And what you can kind of do is you can kind of think of an array as a list of variables, right? Each variable has to be the same type, but you have a list of these variables, and by using your index operator here, you can access the variable that's stored in that memory location. And that's all we're doing here. Before we assign carrots to the 0 index of groceries, there's nothing in that memory location. So once we assign the value carrots, then we have the value of carrots in that memory location. And you can do the same thing if you want to read from that memory location. So in this example, we're writing to that memory location, and we can also read from it using the same index. So let's say groceries. Let's print out 0. I'm also going to just do a print line and have, we'll say groceries, and that'll be our, that'll be like our intro. Let's run this program and see what we print out here. And here we go. We have our groceries beginning, and then we've printed out carrots here, which is the value that is in our first index of the array. We can go through now, and we can do the same thing for all of the other indexes in the array. And I'm only going to do the first couple here, but we could go through and do all of it. This is where loops come in handy, and we'll talk about that in a future video of how you can use loops with arrays. So here we have it. We have the first 4 items in our array. Just for posterity's sake here, I'll print out the 5th one too, since there's only 5. So this is how you access your variable that's in that memory location of the array. You use the straight bracket operator, and you use your index integer in the array. So those are the 2 main sort of like functions of how to write to and read from an array. An array is pretty much a bare bones data structure, or as bare bones as Java data structures kind of get. But it does have another method that we can use here. And so I'll do system.out.println, and I'll print out number of elements in the array here, and we're going to add in our, I'll just start a new line, and we'll print out groceries dot length. And so what groceries dot length does is it basically, this length member variable of the groceries or the array class allows us to print out, in this situation, the number of items in the array. So when we run this, it should print out all of our items, and then it should also print out the number 5, because that's how many items we have in the array. So let's run it here, and we see here it does actually print out 5. So that's one of the other functions that you can use in an array. There are some other things as well. I'm not going to go over all of the possible functions of an array in this video. I just don't have time. But I will post a link in the description of the Oracle documentation that you can go and look at and see some of the other functions. These are the primary functions of an array. It's just how to write to the array, how to read from the array, how to tell the length. We're going to go over in a future video, in the next video maybe, a dynamic array called an array list in Java that has a lot more functions. And we'll talk about a lot more of the functions of that data structure. For arrays, though, they're pretty much a stripped down version of an array list. It's a very basic version that doesn't offer a ton of additional functionality, but it is more efficient than using an array list, as long as you're not doing anything too complex. One last thing that I would like to add is that in this example, we used a string data type for our array. There's no reason it has to be a string. It can be an integer, it can be a Boolean, it can be a custom class that you create. Anything can be passed into an array. Every element in the array just has to be the same type. Okay, so that is your introduction to arrays in Java. Thanks.